This week's edition of Sunday Sitdown brought to you by Cutshaw Chevrolet in Grapeland.
My dad was in the Air Force, so moved around a lot when I was younger. Actually, my first memories came from being in Okinawa. That's We moved there when I was 3 and stayed till I was 7. So have some memories of being in Okinawa. Um, Came back and we're in North Dakota for a year. I remember the cold there, and then we moved to Washington State, and basically that's where I stayed through later part of schooling and high school, and got my bachelor's degree there. So and then my friend and we both kind of just picked the map and said, let's go somewhere, and we decided we were going to go to Texas and do something different and moved to Texas. We ended up both getting teaching jobs. He did not like it and moved back to Washington. I stayed, and that summer actually met my wife, and so
I remember there was a conspiracy she did to get you moved to another town or something.
well, it wasn't really a conspiracy, but yeah, and once you get married to a Texas girl, you're pretty much here, and can't say I regret it. That was I've been This is my 31st year in education here in Texas, so I've been here longer than anywhere else, so I consider myself a Texan now, and
Yeah.
am glad that I stayed. It's been good, and that's how that happened. So I got into teaching that first year there, and I loved what I was doing, and so I stayed. My friend moved back to Washington, and suddenly I was down here in Texas all alone. I remember that was a little bit of a scary feeling as they were driving out of the driveway and with his dad and heading back up to Washington. But I'm certainly glad I stayed, and it's been a good career, and I love helping kids and doing what we can to educate kids. So have two children that are now teachers. Both of them graduated from college and are now teachers. So that's uh, right now the whole family is working in education, and
Wow.
that's I think a good thing.
Now we talk a lot about the superintendent, and obviously we cover school board meetings and what the school is doing. But what exactly is the role and the job of a school superintendent?
Well, and I think some of that has changed in since COVID, um, and also not just COVID, but some other things. So I would say my top priorities as a superintendent is protecting both the physical and the emotional safety of our students. And I don't know that that was always the case as a superintendent, but that is certainly the case now. We have to worry about physical safety. Obviously, you know, there's some bad people in the world that are intent on harming other people, and so that's something that always has to be on the forefront of our minds. And just with COVID and the emotional things that caused for everyone, that's I would say that that's probably my number one priority. Of course, right with that, and it's hard to make it number two, but right there would be trying to provide the best academic environment for our students, and get them where they need to be academically, and that's a challenge everywhere. It's been more of a challenge everywhere because of COVID and that gap that occurred because of that, but that's certainly one of my priorities. And then the third thing that I would say is my priority is trying to help promote a strong character, develop character in people, And I believe one of the best ways to do that is try to be that example for both the employees and the students. Is have that myself, and also to practice good ethical behavior. You know, I've been unfortunately places where that wasn't the model, and um, I I strive to make sure that that's the model that I'm presenting for both the employees, the students, the community, everyone. So.
You mentioned COVID. That was obviously a big upheaval, especially to students in schools. I remember you took over as superintendent kind of right when that all exploded.
Literally right when it exploded. My had been named superintendent, but the 21-day waiting period that ended the weekend after spring break, and so that Monday we were coming back from spring break. There was a board meeting for them to officially make me superintendent. Well, um, during spring break is when COVID kind of hit and things started. You know, we really started realizing, hey, this is something different than just, a few people are getting sick. It literally happened during that week. So talked with Mr. Myers, a previous superintendent, and he said, well, you're going to be in charge as of Monday, so this is your call. What we're going to do here. So um, listening to what was going on and other things, we decided to delay school a week. So came back to work that day, that Monday, but we didn't have kids with us yet, and the board appointed me superintendent, and went through that week. Decided to cancel school for another week because of what was happening, and then after that, the governor stepped in and shut down school for the rest of the year. So, kind of took it out of our hands. But so that was literally my first day on the job
Welcome to the job.
was welcome to COVID. So
Well, obviously, y'all took the right decision in hindsight, but have the schools recovered? Are we over COVID now, or are there still some lingering effects? Or?
well, yeah, there's certainly some lingering effects. As far as active cases of COVID, yes, that has gone down just like it has everywhere. Um, but there are some lingering effects. One of those is, and rightfully so, and this is not just for Crocodile ISD. You talk to any superintendent across the state, our attendance rates have gone down, and I believe the big reason for that is that people are more reluctant to send their students to school when they're sick. We were certainly more reluctant to have you come to school when they were sick. You know, back in the old days, it was I say old days, but we you got the sniffles, you're going to school. As a staff member, if we were sick, it's much better to have a sick staff member at work than to have a sub in there, because even if I'm not at my best as a teacher, I do know my kids, I know what's going on. Well, both of those things changed. You know, a staff member's sick now, I can't afford to have you at school, because if it was COVID, you could be spreading that. Students the same way. So yeah, our attendance rate has gone down. Um, the Obviously there was a learning gap there. I mean, we were out of school for the last half of 2020, and then we were required to offer a virtual option when we started the year, that 2021 school year. Um, we, just like everyone around the state, realized that that was not the best way to learn. And I think that's one valuable lesson that came from this, is that online learning is not all that it's cracked up to be. You have to have the right instructor. You also have to have the right mentality as a student to be successful in that. And that is not most students. It also highlighted all the other myriad things that we do as a school system, which touches on the emotional health of students, I think. And obviously that, as adults, the having a mask on and just the lack of contact and everything, but you think what that did to students, and being away from everyone for that period of time. Most of those people were away from people altogether. They weren't even getting together with their friends, especially when it first happened. So those are still lingering effects. Obviously there was that learning gap. We were very happy that we did make a dent in that last year with our ratings. We're going to continue to work on that and try to do that this year. But the state is throwing a brand new test at us, a brand new way of testing. Everything's going to be online, and every time the state has done that and reset the evaluation system, scores across the state have gone down. So we're we're not trying to expect scores to go down. We're still doing everything we can, but they're giving us a new test that we haven't seen. They are telling us it's going to be more rigorous, and again, every time the state's done that, which they do about every 5 years or so, that reset means everything goes down. So we're hoping that's not going to happen. But so yes, working on all those things. I can't talk about that without talking about the effects it had on our staff too. Especially that first year we tried to come back a little bit. So we were back in school. We were mandated that we had to open our doors and come back, but we were also mandated we had to do online learning. So you were asking teachers to really stretch themselves thin. They had to do both. And that I believe is one of the reasons we're in the teacher shortage we are now. There were a lot of people during that time decided, you know what, I can retire. I'm going to retire now. There were a lot of people I think that were thinking maybe, do I want to get into this profession? Decided, look at that. Look at the workload. Look at the recognition that people get. It's funny, if you ask everyone about their teachers, they hold them in high regard. But if you ask them just in general about the teaching profession, it's really not something people hold in the same regard as other professions that I think are even less important than what the teaching profession is. So that took a toll on our staff also, and and then one of the frustrations I have, I already talked a little bit about the testing system, is just with our state officials not recognizing all that, and they're still holding us accountable for one day test, how a student does on that one day, and just think about yourself. There are days that are better or worse for you. You don't know what is happening. Well, you get a group of kids size of group we have, and there's going to be a number of kids in there that had something traumatic, or even maybe it wasn't something you and I might think is traumatic, but to them it was, and now they have to take a test, and our school, and not just our school, but our staff and our community is reflected in what that grade is for that one day test. And so I'm like a lot of superintendents, we're kind of doing what we can to be active with our legislators and tell them how this is affecting communities and students, and trying to work on a different system. So I'm hopeful. They're in session right now, that something will change there, and I'm trying to take an active part in that. I'm gonna actually go over there next week and hopefully meet with some people and give my ideas on some things. But that all kind of stemmed and got highlighted, I think, during COVID. So
now, Mr. Emerich, every district is going to have its own pluses, minuses, all the rest. What are some of the unique challenges in the Crockett School District, and how are you guys working to make the strengths better?
Certainly. Well, you may have heard of a Title I school, but basically what that means, you can be a Title I school if 40% of your students are economically disadvantaged. We have over 90% of our students are economically disadvantaged. And for years and years and years, and now every study that's been done out there will tell you that poverty is the largest factor that impacts kids and their learning above any other thing you could have. Obviously you pile COVID on there, but our kids were still in a poverty situation even with COVID. So the number one factor that affects kids from the outside is poverty, and so that is a large influence on our kids, and something that we have to overcome. Obviously, the number one factor also to overcome that is having a good teacher in your classroom. So we're being challenged by having to educate kids like that, but we're also, just like every school across the country, the teacher shortage, and so we're trying to come up with ways just like everyone else. One of those obviously is pay. I'm going to try to continue to be the best paid in this area, and offer that reward for our teachers. But one of the big things that we did this year, with the help of the grant that we received, is being able to partner with um, NIET, National Institution for Excellence in Teaching. And one of the big things that we're doing with that is we have time now built into our schedule every single week. Our teachers, every teacher meets together to get some professional development as far as trying to help them with academic things in the classroom. So that's a big deal, something I'm very proud of, and hopefully we'll start to see the dividends of that as we go through time. And um, you know, we have to make the teachers we have as good as we can, and so that's one of the challenges that we're trying to address by doing things in that regard. So.
Now, for those of us that don't have kids in the system here in Crockett, we hear about the sports and the UIL and FFA and a lot of stuff. Tell us a couple things maybe you guys are doing that we don't hear that much about or we don't know about.
Okay. Well, obviously, those activities you just mentioned, extracurricular activities, are very important. Um, I've said this before, and I believe this. There are very few students over there in that school right now that are here because they love English or they love math, and that's the same with adults. That's not the thing. So having those extracurriculars, whether it's band, the FFA, the athletics, whatever those things are, that's a hook for those kids, and the education is what they kind of have to put up with to do that. But that's the way it is in life with everything. And so we're very proud of those programs we have. That's another one of mine and most of the superintendents across the state. Their complaint with the way we're graded. That letter grade we get does not take into account all of those myriad of good things we're doing for students that are outside just that 1 day test. And we really wish there was a better way to include all of those things that we're doing. Um, One of the things I'm real proud about, since I've been here, we have drastically increased our dual credit offerings. We had just um, a handful of kids taking dual credit classes, and through some efforts we put in and expanding that, so even a freshman could start on that journey. We're now offering several hundred of our kids are taking classes. One of the things I'm real proud about is we pay for those 100% here in Crockett ISD, and so a student can, if they choose to take enough classes, they can actually finish with an associate's degree from college at the same time they finish their high school diploma. I know this year we're going to have several kids that are ending up with 60 plus hours. Um, Two or three of them are just like a credit short or one class short of getting that associate's degree this year. And those were the first kids that started on that track of being able to take them at an earlier pace. And so I'm very proud of that. You think about, if you have students, if you have kids yourself, and they've been given basically 2 years of free college, that's basically what we're doing. So we worked out that deal with Angelina. We pay for that cost, and we have a lot of students taking advantage of that. So, and that's to me really huge for students that are in poverty, and giving them that leg up. I think they see, hey, I can do college. This is something that isn't above me. Many of our students are going to be first time college graduates if they go that route and finish that. So very proud of that. Again, I mentioned our partnership with NIET and the efforts we're able to do because of that grant. That is really big too, because that is meeting teachers where they are, addressing some needs, helping them to be better teachers. And I want to have a growth mindset that I can get better every day, and I can still learn things. Just because I've been doing this for 31 years doesn't mean I have it all figured out. COVID was a good example of a new problem being thrown at you that you've never, I didn't have no study about that. There was nothing in any of my college textbooks about how to handle something like that. And so you just have to move on from that. Other thing that I'm real proud about, many people may not know, is we did get involved in a program that Texas Education Agency is offering called the Teacher Incentive Allotment. Our teachers are in that data collection year right now, so hopefully next year some of our teachers are going to have qualified from what they're doing this year, and they can earn upwards of $25,000 extra compensation just for that teacher. So I don't care who you are. That's a lot of money. Some of our teachers are going to be getting close to making six figures if they get that money. So
Powerful recruitment.
that's a powerful recruitment tool. It's an opportunity for those teachers to actually get rewarded. And there's some criteria, but basically what it is if your students are growing and showing um, the improvement they're supposed to, you're going to qualify for this. And so that's something I'm very proud of. And many people may not know about that, but that's something we're proud of. So
Last question. Looking into your crystal ball, um, what what do you see as kind of your long term goals? Where do you see the district? 3, 5 years down the road.
well, again, certainly academic performance. We want to continue that. We've started on a path of improving that, and we definitely want to continue to see that going. Again, I realize so much how that reflects on not just this school district, not just myself, but it reflects on our community. And so it's important to me to have a strong academic program at our school. So that is something we're going to continue to work on. As I said, we made some progress last year, even against odds that said we shouldn't be making those progress. So we're going to continue to work on that, and I think the things we're putting in place, those things aren't things that are going to, they're not a flash in the pan as far as the improvement we're going to see. They're more long term, and so I'm very optimistic that 5 years down the road we're going to be talking about and have a much different 5 year history than we do right now, and that's something I'm certainly going to continue to work on. We're going to continue to work on our vocational programs. We have some students that, and through my 31 years in education, I've seen that pendulum swing back and forth a couple times now, where we're supposed to get everyone to college, and then, no, we're supposed to be realistic and have some folks that aren't going to college, and here's some other things, and that's kind of where the pendulum is again, and so we're working on that. As you may or may not know, our board just voted, and we're going to expand and offer a cosmetology program in the future. That is, we did some surveys of students and the community and parents, and that was the number one thing that people said they would like to see us offer. And so I'm very proud that we figured out a way to be able to do that, and construction is going to start on that pretty soon, and we're going to get that program up and running as quick as possible. And just last week went and visited a school district that had their program built about 3 years ago by the same company that's doing ours, and I can tell you is a very impressive looking thing, and looking forward to that happening. And so we're going to continue to try to do that for kids. We have a big employer here for welding and things like that. So that was another one of the areas our kids were very interested in. So we're doing some things to expand that program and get kids prepared to leave here and either go to further training or to get a job doing that. Because again, college isn't for everyone. And I went to community college right out of high school and didn't know what I wanted to do still, and going to more college was not what I needed at that time, and worked for a while and then decided to go back to school later, and that could be someone else's path also. And been very proud of our fiscal situation here in the district. Doing what I can to try to maintain that. The guy before me inherited some very poor conditions with the finances in this district, and helped build that up. And I've been very proud that I've been able to continue that. Last year we had several large projects that had to be done, just keeping maintenance on our buildings and our facilities, things that we really hadn't budgeted for, but I'm very proud we were able to do those and yet still maintain our fiscal responsibility there. So, and part of that is the biggest part of that is so I can continue to pay the staff, not what they're worth, because they're worth way more than I can pay them, but at least give them more than other people are being able to give them in this area, and try to stay competitive with that, and reward them financially for the job they're doing. Again, it will never be enough, and that's everyone in our system. But so those are my main goals and things I'm working on. So.